And there's too many people to thank for what you've done. And I truly want to start by thanking the voters. Thank you for going out. Thank you for having your voice heard. And it's a very important time for our country. And I'm honored to be able to continue to serve our district and Hampton Roads on your behalf in Washington. I also want to thank the registrars, the people who work the polls tirelessly, not only yesterday throughout the day, but over the last month and a half. This was the first time that people were able to vote early in person without an excuse in Virginia. And many, many people, about 200,000 people, showed up and did that. And it was a challenge to implement many new things, especially during the time of COVID. And they did it safely and efficiently. And as we saw, late and really early into the morning, by the time the absentee votes were reported, about 200,000 people in our congressional district did vote early, and it was just very thankful for all the hard work that made that happen. I also want to thank my team, both in my official offices, our office in Washington, as well as in Virginia Beach and York County and on the Eastern Shore and Olney. Over the last 2 years, you've worked tirelessly beside me to help our district. And finishing up my first term, just wanted to thank you for the hard work that you've done. The president actually signed our 8th bill into law last week with the Chesapeake Bay cleanup funding. It's a 5-year reauthorization that was included in the American Conservation Enhancement Act, and that's much needed funding for the health of our bay. And the week before that, he signed our 7th bill into law, which was a pay raise for disabled veterans for the 2nd time in a row. And I'm looking forward to continuing to serve on the Armed Services Committee as well as the Veterans Affairs Committee to continue to work for our military, our veterans, our military families, and fight for all of these issues across Hampton Roads. And most importantly, the recovery from COVID. This has been a very difficult time. This has been a difficult time for people's health, for their families, and for the loss that we've had of over 230,000 Americans and so many millions of people who've been afflicted by this illness. So we have a lot of work to do to continue to get the virus under control, to help with testing, tracing, tracking, and then the development and distribution of a safe vaccine to over 300 million Americans. That's a big task, and I look forward to working with my colleagues in the House and in the administration to make that happen safely and effectively. I also want to thank my campaign team, both our volunteers who were out there, rain or shine, especially during a time of COVID. It was an unusual time to run a campaign. You were very innovative, very adaptive in using all the different tools we had to reach voters in a safe way. And thank you for your dedicated hours and the time that you put into that. And I especially want to thank my campaign manager, Veronica, who's here with us today, for her hard work, as well as our whole team, many of whom are here directly with us, and many who joined us virtually because we overcame and adapted through COVID, but we used every means possible to reach voters across the district. I want to call out a special thanks to my campaign manager from last time, who has served as my chief of staff for the last 2 years in Washington, Catherine Sorensen. She's done an incredible job, and just look forward to the work that we'll continue to do on behalf of the 2nd District. And wrapping up, most importantly, I'm here with my family. My parents were not able to join us because of COVID, but my husband, Robert, and my daughter, Violet, are here with us, and I truly couldn't do any of this without you. And thank you for being there by my side and making this possible and motivating me to do this and keep going through a very difficult time during COVID, as well as a challenging and spirited campaign. So thank you so much again to everyone watching, and it's my honor to continue to serve you and serve on behalf of the 2nd Congressional District.
Congresswoman,
Yeah.
I have to ask you the question. If you win, why did you win?
I got more votes. Andy, your questions are too simple.
I was kidding.
Okay.
Do you want to answer that, though? As you look back, why did Biden and Luria do so well in the 2nd District?
Well, I mean, I can speak for the 2nd District as far as our team and our team in our congressional office. We've been working tirelessly for the last almost 2 years. And we've taken problems that we heard here in the district from people in the district and solve those problems. We've had 8 bills signed into law, including a pay raise for disabled veterans twice, as well as funding for the Chesapeake Bay. And one of the things that really speaks the most to me is that we had a meeting here in Virginia Beach with some Gold Star families, a group of surviving spouses, all widows, and they sat around the table and they told me the challenges that they had after having lost their husbands in combat. And their taxes had gone up astronomically in 2017, and we were able to take back that problem and find a solution and provide tax relief not only to them, but to thousands of families around the country who've already paid the ultimate sacrifice. And when I think of that as just one example of that's how the legislative process should work, and that's how I've served as your representative. And I think that being able to tell people that story throughout the campaign is the kind of thing that motivated people to support us and send us back to Washington.
Congresswoman, can you talk about just the results coming in last night? At one point you were down 20,000 votes, but we all knew that you had to wait for that early the central absentee precinct. What was it like watching it last night, and just what did you make once you saw that number come in from Virginia Beach?
Right. Well, so about 200,000 people had voted early, and it took time to process all of those early votes that people voted in person and voted absentee. And so we knew, where we expected to see a big surge in votes. And I had been out and talked to voters in the early voting lines and just understood the enthusiasm that was out there. So I knew that I would have a sizable advantage in those early votes. And when the numbers came in, that was clear. And then they continued to come in, as they will through Friday, because every ballot that was postmarked by November 3rd and is received by the registrar as of noon on Friday will also be counted.
Did you ever think, though, I'm losing this?
I just knew those votes were very important, and they were a sizable part of the electorate. I mean, that was about 200,000 votes, and as an example, in 2016, we had 310,000 people vote in this district. So it was over 50% of the votes that we expected. So, I knew that there were still a lot of votes to be counted.
Congresswoman, what is your next plan for Hampton Roads? I know you've heard a lot of the concerns. What are some of the next concerns you're going to be tackling this term?
Well, I think going back to Washington, myself with all of my colleagues, in the House as well as the Senate and the administration, we have to work on getting another COVID relief package and dealing with all of the challenges that COVID has presented, both from a public health perspective, as well as the challenges it's created for individuals and their families, as well as small businesses. So there's a lot of work, and I think that needs to be one of our primary focuses when we return to Washington.
Are there specific pieces of legislation that you hoped to get done in your first term that you're hoping to get in the second?
Yes, well, through this year, we are still working, and it's in conference now, the National Defense Authorization Act. So I actually have 3 bills that were included in this year's NDAA or defense bill. So I'm working, with my colleagues in the House and the Senate to make sure that those provisions can be included. So that's one of my priorities, carrying forward from the work that we've already started. And as an example, one of the things in there is a cancer incidence study for military pilots. Anecdotally, there's a lot of pilots who've flown in military aircraft who have suffered from different cancers and rare cancers, but there hasn't been a comprehensive scientific study of that. So that is an example of one of the things that I put in this year's defense bill, and I'll keep pushing for that. I've also worked a lot with the American maritime industry, and as we know, there's offshore wind development happening off Virginia. The 144,000 acres that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has set aside, and Dominion and Ørsted are starting to develop that with the test turbines. It's a huge opportunity for our region as far as economic growth, and it's also very important for the American maritime industry. So I have some provisions I'm working on relative to protecting the Jones Act relative to offshore wind development. So those are just a few examples, but I have quite a few things that we're working on.
Did you speak with Scott Taylor today at all? I know we got the congratulations.
I have not spoken to him. I heard from my staff that he had posted a statement online, but I haven't spoken to him.
One of the things when we were interviewing him, he said, well, it just looks like, it's this old issue and it's a smear campaign. Total smear campaign. If I were a private citizen, I'd be suing her for slander. Do you regret anything about the tone of the campaign?
I don't. I think I've spent my major effort in the campaign talking about the things that we've done on behalf of the district, on behalf of veterans and Gold Star families, and the environment, and Blue Water Navy veterans, the legislation we passed to help those Vietnam-era veterans. And we had a lot of positive things to talk about, and I'm very proud of the campaign I've run, and I'm very proud of my team.
Do Do you think we're benefited again in this election by that issue, dealing with the voter fraud?
I think that, when voters were reminded of that issue and the pending investigation, it certainly swayed their decision process.
Congresswoman, you're going to be the first Democrat since Owen Pickett back in the 90s and until, 2001, to hold this seat for more than 2 consecutive years. It has been a libertarian-leaning district, but it does seem like you have made inroads and Democrats have made inroads. So what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think that we've seen in Virginia over the last several years, a shifting demographic and shifting, political makeup of our districts. Governor Northam won this district in 2017. Tim Kaine and myself were victorious here in 2018. 2019, there were General Assembly seats in this area that were also, added to the majority in the General Assembly in Virginia overall for now. It's over a decade, 12 years with Mark Warner winning again statewide this time, have won all statewide elections in Virginia. So, the 2nd District in 2016 went for Republican by 4 points, so it was considered a leaning R+4 district. Now, after this election, it'll be considered, with the results, which are not final yet for Vice President Biden in this district, D+4. So we've swung this seat 8 points in 2 election cycles.
But is it messaging by the Democrats? Is it the Republicans going too far to the right? Why do you think there's been that big of a swing in the district?
I think that it's a variety of things. I think that it's the message that we've put out. And in this case, winning re-election in 2020, I feel like it's the hard work that our team has done that made us so successful.
And just want to ask, do you have any thoughts just on the presidential race right now? I know you're a Joe Biden supporter. It's contested in several states. What do you want to see happen with the process?
Well, I think the important thing is that every vote needs to be counted, and every American needs to know that every vote needs to be counted, and that the results shouldn't be called until those votes are accounted for. So, I'm watching, as is everyone else, as those votes come in, and as the registrars and election officials in all of the battleground states continue to count them. So, I think that it could be days or even longer for some of the states because of their process with absentee ballots, and that differs in different states around the country. So I think the important part is that we have patience until every vote is counted.
Have you spoken with House leadership since your win?
Some. My phone is blown up. Before I came in, I didn't have a chance to answer. I had over 100 text messages, so a lot of folks to call back.
Did you get a call from Nancy Pelosi?
I have not spoken to her yet today. But I did. Governor Northam gave me a call a little while ago as well.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry it wasn't a huge party like last